Today, we're diving into a law in India that did something truly revolutionary. It handed ordinary citizens the legal power to demand answers, to pull back the curtain, and to look directly into the files of their own government. This is the story of the Right to Information Act. Just think about that for a second. What if you, personally, had the legal right to ask any government department to show you their records, to see how they're spending your money, what decisions they're making in your name? Well, that is the incredible promise at the very heart of this law. You know, to really get why this matters so much, let's start with a real-life situation. Picture this. You're a farmer in rural Rajasthan. You did work for a government project, you were promised wages, but the money just never shows up. You go to the local official and he just waves you away. You feel completely powerless. And before 2005, that was pretty much the end of the story for millions of people. So, to understand why that farmer was stuck, we have to look at the world that existed before this law. And that world was defined by a massive, impenetrable wall of official secrecy. And the main brick in that wall, you could even say the villain of our story, was this law right here, the Official Secrets Act. Now, this was a leftover from the British colonial era, and its whole point was to protect the rulers from the people. The basic idea? All government information belongs to the government, period. And this chart just brilliantly shows the philosophical earthquake that happened. I mean, it's not a small change. It's a complete 180-degree flip. Under the old system, the state owned the info. Secrecy was the default, and sharing it could be a crime. The RTI Act comes along and flips every single one of those ideas on its head. Now, you, the citizen, are the owner. The default is to disclose. And getting that information isn't a crime. It's your fundamental right. So, where did this incredible revolution even come from? You might think it started in the halls of Parliament with a bunch of politicians, but you'd be wrong. It started in a village. Back in the mid-90s, this grassroots group in Rajasthan, the MKSS, started asking a very, very simple question on behalf of farmers and laborers like the one we just talked about. Show us where the money went. Show us the receipts. These weren't powerful insiders. They were just ordinary people who were tired of being ignored. And their method was just genius. They would hold these public hearings called Jan Sunwais, and they'd manage to get copies of official government records and read them out loud to the whole village. And then people would stand up and say, wait a minute, the records say you paid my husband for work, but he died 3 years ago. They found ghost schools that were never built and wells that only existed on paper. It was corruption laid bare, all because of this simple act of reading a government file out loud. And from that one village, the idea just caught fire and spread across the country. As you can see here, other states started passing their own versions of the law. The central government tried to pass a really weak, toothless version in 2002, but the activists and the people pushed back hard. They wanted something with real power. And finally, in 2005, they got it. Okay, so what is this powerful tool exactly? What makes the RTI Act of 2005 so special? Let's break down its absolute game-changing features. First off, the core philosophy. And what's incredible is that the Supreme Court of India had actually said this 30 years before the law was even passed. All the way back in 1975, it declared that in a democracy, being open has to be the rule, and secrecy has to be the rare exception. The RTI Act finally took that powerful idea and turned it into a legal reality for every single citizen. So what are the game changers? Well, first, disclosure is the new default. And second, and this is huge, you don't have to explain why you want the information. You don't have to be a journalist, you don't have to be an activist. Your right to know is reason enough. And you're simply asking for records that the government already has. 30 days. I want you to remember that number. Once you file a request, the government has a strict 30-day clock to respond. And if it's a matter of life or liberty, that shrinks to just 48 hours. This isn't some vague wish. It's a time-bound, enforceable right. And you might be thinking, this all sounds complicated, but it's designed to be the opposite. It's so simple. You figure out which department has the information, you write a clear question, you pay a tiny fee, we're talking just 10 rupees, that's less than a quarter, and you submit it. That's it. That's the process to use this incredibly powerful tool. So now we get to the really big stuff. How has this law actually changed the relationship between the people of India and their government? This is where we see that power shift happen in the real world. Now, of course, this right isn't totally absolute. The law has some common sense exemptions built in, things like national security or stuff that would invade someone's personal privacy. But And this is the key thing to remember. The default is always, always disclosure. The government has to justify keeping a secret, not the other way around. But what if an official just says no? Well, that is not the end of the road. The law gives you a powerful appeals process. You can take it to a senior officer, and if that doesn't work, you can appeal again to an independent information commission. The system has your back. And to make sure this isn't just an empty promise, the law has real teeth. An official who wrongly denies you information or just drags their feet can be personally fined 250 rupees for every single day they're late. Now that's a real incentive to take a citizen's request seriously. So the ultimate takeaway is this. For decades, the thinking was that government business was secret business. The RTI Act came in and completely changed the dynamic. It established once and for all that what the government does in your name with your tax money is fundamentally your business. And that really brings us to our final thought. The right to ask a question is one of the most powerful rights you can have in a democracy. It transforms you from just being a passive subject into an active, engaged citizen. So it leaves us with just one question for you. What would you ask?